Hi there, and welcome to The Woven Record. My name is Mike Lagerquist.
And I'm Becky True.
And we're here just to introduce to what we've got going on this week on thewovenrecordmedia.com.
I'm pretty excited about it. These interviews are pretty powerful. So
I hope you'll pay attention and also kind of utilize those to frame what it is that we're trying to do here. We're working on relationships. We want to make sure that we're listening to each other. We want to just remind people that different opinions are important to incorporate into your idea of what's happening in the world.
Yep.
So in the first interview, we're going to talk with Thad Shunkweiler. He is a professor at Minnesota State University, Mankato, and in his work preparing the next generation of human services professionals, he realized that his lack of recent clinical experience really put him at a disadvantage. So during a one-year sabbatical from MSU, something that's very important for instructors to have because that allows them to stay fresh with what they're teaching the students, he opened up Mankato Marriage Solutions, which is a counseling service for marriages, families, and children. And he says that the marriage relationship is the foundational relationship that helps us establish how we work and deal with other people. So by helping people improve that relationship, they can also update their skill set that they pass along to their children, or in his case, to students. I am here with Thad Shunkweiler. Thad is an associate professor in health sciences at Minnesota State University, taking a year off from his classroom teaching to kind of put his learning to use as a marriage therapist. So Thad, tell us a little bit about your story and how it came to be that you are in the position you are in August of 2025.
Well, thanks, Mike. I appreciate the opportunity to share a little bit about who I am and my background and why I feel so passionate about this work. And I think to bring it to where it all began for me, just very briefly, I was raised by my grandparents. My mom was a single mother and did the best that she could, but I got in a lot of trouble when I was in middle school and high school. And so at a certain point, it just became necessary for me to get out of the environment that I was in. And I was raised on a small farm down in the southwest corner by Edgerton, Minnesota. I got to learn a lot about responsibility on that farm. My life started going in a different direction, but I still didn't know where I was going to go. I didn't have a plan. I never in a million years would have thought I became an academic or a marriage and family therapist. But I still didn't know what I wanted to do. And lo and behold, the Army recruiter showed up at my door. And I thought, well, why not? I don't have much else going on. And that was in August of 2001. So as you can imagine, the world was a pretty different place in August of 2001 than it was in September. And so after spending some time in the military, coming home and now wanting to go to school, not still quite sure what it was that I wanted to do, but had the GI Bill and knew that I wanted to advance my education, kind of started in courses and kind of realized through my own growth, growing up, but also post-deployment and military experience, that I wanted to help people in the world of behavioral health. And so that kind of started a long academic journey of going to school and learning. And within that process of learning about mental health and how we best help people, I became very interested in relational counseling and the importance of relationships between people. And for me, and what I was learning is that there's no more important relationship in one's life than their marriage. And realizing at that time wasn't married, didn't quite know how challenging it was. I saw what my mom went through. I saw what many of my friends who had been married and the challenges they were having. And so I thought, why not? Why not? As I was thinking about the mental health work that I wanted to do, kind of focus my training and my background in marriage and family therapy. And so that's what I did. And I worked clinically for a number of years in and around southern Minnesota and had the opportunity to become an academic. And that was always in the back of my mind. I fell in love with school while I was in school. So I knew somewhere I wanted to come back and give back in that way. but knew that I needed the experience to kind of be able to teach it, if that makes sense. Sure. So I spent some time getting that experience and working with, families and couples and individuals, even working on some research on parenting while I was at the University of Minnesota. Anyway, I took the opportunity when it came up to join the faculty at MSU in Mankato here, and didn't quite know where my academic interests would take me. I knew where I had been clinically, and one of the things that I immediately kind of hooked onto was the future of mental health care, and specifically who was going to provide it. Because when I was working clinically, my last job was as a clinical director of a network of clinics in and around the Mankato and southern Minnesota region. And we had a terrible problem with recruiting and retaining clinicians. And what I got to see from that role was not just the headaches of trying to fill vacant positions, but the impact it had on people waiting for services or having to jump from one provider to another. And so I thought, when I'm in academia, why not spend my time trying to research and figure out what's going on with the behavioral health workforce? And as I started that work now 10 years ago, I started to uncover lots of red flags about the behavioral health workforce. And I started to dissect where the biggest challenges were and saw, at least in Minnesota, that we had a serious problem today, and that problem projected to get a whole lot worse in outstate or rural Minnesota. That prompted me, after I had wrote a paper about the workforce and the projections and what it looked like, and I sat down and I thought, well, what are we gonna do about it, right? Higher ed is great at pointing out a problem and saying somebody else needs to fix it. It has been rare in my experience where higher ed is leading the charge to solve the problem they help uncover. And I thought, why don't we change that? And so I had the idea of creating an academic research center focused on exclusively understanding rural mental health issues and developing the workforce of tomorrow. And that's where the idea for the Center for Rural Behavioral Health came from, which with some help with some great MSU administrators and other faculty, we got it up off the ground in 2021 with the mission of improving access to care in rural Minnesota. And so I had poured my heart and soul into that part of my career of getting that research center up off the ground. And I was very proud of that work, but knew that there was still something else missing, something else I wanted to do. At the time, I didn't know quite what it was. And then I planned to take a sabbatical. So I'm on a full year sabbatical. Most people can't believe that in 2025, somebody can take a year off from their job, but we are able to do that. And I believe the purpose for sabbatical is to refresh, faculty who teach the same courses over and over again. But from my perspective, it's to bring real world experience back into the classroom. It had been years since I've been doing the things that I'm teaching about. So for me, on that sabbatical, my plan was to come back to clinical work. And I looked around and I thought, okay, I'm preaching about the importance of access to care. I talk about the future of the behavioral health workforce, and here I am, a licensed provider with years of experience, but not doing that. And so I kind of did an analysis of the Mankato region, and I thought, where could my services best be served? Because at that point, I wasn't committed to doing marriage therapy exclusively, but through that work of just like what was available in town, and we have some great marriage therapists in town, don't get me wrong, but when I attempted to contact them just to see the need for more, I was told that it would be 2 to 3 months to get in for some of them. So that just really okay, here is a gap in the Mankato region. And so I thought, okay, during my clinical experience, I'm gonna focus on couples counseling. And I believe that it goes beyond mental health, marriage therapy. It's truly, for me anyway, it's about society. And that might seem kind of big picture here, but follow me on this for just a second. As I mentioned before, relationships are central to the human experience, and there's no more important relationship in one's life than their marital relationship. And the research shows, and it's shown for as long as we've been trying to document it, that marriage is the foundation of the family, and family is the foundation of communities. So when I think about working with couples to help improve their marriage, it's in a way not only improving that relationship, but improving the family dynamics, which make a healthier community as a whole. And so when I saw there was a deficit or a need for more of those services, having the skill set and the interest, the impact that it has not only on the two people, but on the Mankato community as a whole, it was a no-brainer.
Well, and I'm thinking that you probably saw the results of a good or failing marriage in the classroom by your students and how they respond to others, their focus ability, if they have to be working, all of those things. And that, like your work, providing professionals, they go out in the world with that.
You got it.
In their suitcase, so.
You got it. And the other big phenomenon that's been happening, it started before COVID, don't get me wrong, but COVID really shined a light on it, was children's mental health and the crisis and epidemic. And the Mankato community has done tremendous things centered around children's mental health and what the United Way and their team is doing with that. But what often people don't realize in children's mental health is that we think about the child as the person needing services, but that happens in some instances, but in many more instances, it's a symptom of a larger family dynamic, which then brings back to that most important component of the family dynamic, which is the marriage. Research is very clear that the best predictor of every negative social outcome that can happen to a child, so teenage pregnancy, drug use, dropping out of school, the best predictor is the level of parental involvement. Sure. And it is hard for parents to be present and to show up for their kids when they're also struggling in that most important relationship. And so for me, it was like, okay, where can I make that biggest impact and to be able to do it? Because you're right, Mike, I see it, you see it. Our entire community sees the impact of when families struggle, the cascading effect it has across our whole community. So wanted to step in for that.
And we're talking about something that's going to then move forward for generations, because if they have poor parental role models, they're going to duplicate that in their own lives.
Yeah, parents are their children's best teachers. And I'm a teacher, and it's sometimes hard to hear that, oh, what do you mean I'm not the best teacher? But as a parent, I now see that. And so if I can make parents better communicators, develop healthier relationships, you're absolutely right. That effect hopefully then will transcend into the next generation. So we can see a positive improvement whole scale.
Yeah, and how have you seen, you kind of alluded to it to start with you getting into the service just before 9/11. Mm-hmm. And then there have been economic downturns since then. There has been an increase in mass shootings and that sort of thing. How has the change in our culture affected what you even would have seen in 2001 to 2005, so to speak?
Yeah. I think we have become, and the research would support this, we have become more isolated as a society. And that was true prior to COVID. Often people point to 2020 as like, well, that's when it started. Well, absolutely not. It was trending in that direction for a very long time. And so when people disconnect, it permeates, like that disconnection from that human relationship has all sorts of negative outcomes. And so I think about things like, you mentioned mass shootings and violence, and the protective factor to violence is empathy. When people have empathy for one another, but we only learn and develop empathy through those relationships. And so when you have people who have stopped having meaningful human relationships and live on their phones or online, it makes sense to anyone watching, knowing those things, why we're seeing the trend we are with violence, suicide, addiction. All of those things make sense because what we're actually talking about is the breakdown of that human relationship.
Yeah, and I'm just thinking about some things that I've heard you say in the past, as far as even the life expectancy change has dropped because in some cases there's that mental health aspect that leads to suicide. Yeah. And so therefore the life expectancy of a 22-year-old skews the figures, so to speak.
Yeah.
And empathy is something too that I think we give a lot of lip service to, but it seems like the quality of empathy has deteriorated through the years. Everybody responds to a Facebook post with their own story, which could be seen as empathy, but at the same time, it's still very much an isolating thing because they're not talking about what the other person is experiencing. They're bringing their own experience.
Yeah. We as a society have, I won't say lost, because there are places in where we still have it, but the skill of listening has been greatly diminished. And it makes sense. You think about the ways in which we communicate today. We don't have to listen. I text you, you text me. We emailed each other to set this up. It is a skill that if not honed, we lose. And so to your point about empathy, it does require people to listen. The majority of what the work I do in this room right here is centered around building that empathic listening connection and not just waiting for your turn to talk or for you to share how you feel about it, but truly to seek to understand someone's experiences. And you're absolutely correct. That piece has been lost. And to tie it back to the comment about life expectancy, we call them the deaths of despair. And that comes from Ann Case, an Ivy League faculty member who coined the terms. And it's suicide, drug overdose, and cirrhosis of the liver, or alcoholism, chronic alcohol use. And those three, preventable, phenomenons, are the single-handed reason we saw the life expectancy in this country drop, which was unheard of with the level of healthcare we have. Good news is we've seen a rebound of that to some degree, and it mostly is due to the improvements we made with the opioid overdoses that we've seen over the last 3-4 years has brought that life expectancy from the trend going down to at least stabilizing and even popping back up. So there's some good news with that, but it still doesn't mean that we're, as a society, as healthy and functioning as we could be if we put more energy and effort into those relationships.
Do you see a change? There's some recognition about what's happening, as you just pointed out. Has there been a change in society and culture to go along with that added awareness?
I think so. I think specifically there has been a shift into recognizing the impact of emotions on us. We often think about like mental health, right? Which there are two ways to think about mental health. I think there's one like brain health, mental illness, psychiatric illness, and then what we all experience is, which is emotional wellness. And we've heightened our awareness of both of those things and have at least attempted to prioritize that. Are we doing as good a job as we probably should? Probably not, but we're doing better than we have. And so to your point about, is it getting better? I do think there are signs and places where there have been some improvements. I think most notably connecting back to my work here around like the marriage divorce rate. And you saw the highs of divorce peak in the mid to late 1980s. And there's some very practical reasons. We entertained no-fault divorce, which then opened the floodgates of being able to end and terminate marriages that were unhealthy. But we've also we've made improvements in like understanding that marriage therapy works. And it does, right? The research is very clear that couples who engage in this type of work have a positive outcome on their relationship and marriage. So that just ties back to your point of like, as a society, we've become more aware of the benefits of emotional wellness, but we're still lagging pretty far behind just given what we see around us.
Do you think that has had an impact on the fact that I believe the rate of marriage is down because people are not, I know one thing that I found was that women find that the men that they want are harder to find. Sure. Because of in some cases, development level. Mm-hmm. A woman in her late 20s or early 30s is perhaps looking at family and looking at career and that sort of thing. And sometimes men are still looking at going out and having a party with the guys. Yeah. And they're finding it hard to find that mate and therefore are kind of stepping aside and not going into a marriage.
Yeah. I'm glad you brought that up, because under the surface of, well, divorce rates are down, marriage rates are down, right? Like, you got to compare apples to apples. And yeah, absolutely. I think there are a couple of factors. People are just waiting longer to get married. I think back to when I graduated high school, there were at least half a dozen of my classmates who were married within that first year of graduating high school. That trend, at least societally speaking, that doesn't happen. Maybe it still does in some of the rural communities where that culture is still permeated. But you're absolutely right. Both men and women are waiting longer. And there are a couple of reasons for that, I think. One is they see that marriage is hard, and they don't want to get a divorce. They've maybe seen a parent go through that or a family member go through that. So there is some trepidation. But I also just think from a societal standpoint, not only is life hard, it's expensive now. So there is this can you even afford to be married? Can you, move out of your mom and dad's house to then cohabitate with somebody? I think all of that factors in, but you are correct that people are waiting longer to get married. As a result, the divorce rate comes down. And what the long-term impacts of that will be, I don't think we yet know, right? Like, maybe it'll be a positive. I don't want to sit here and say, if you don't get married, things are going to, not work out well. But we also don't know. Maybe on the flip side, that lack of marriages and maybe lack of family development may have another problem that we can't anticipate in 2025.
Yeah, and of course, that marriage license, getting married, kind of increases the likelihood that people will seek counseling, I'm guessing, because if there isn't a marriage, they might just say, well, I'm going to go and see if I can find somebody else and just end that relationship.
You would think so. You would think that, and you're probably true, the majority of the people I work with and most marriage counselors do are people who are legally married. But I have seen in just even the past 5-6 months I've been doing this, unmarried cohabitating couples seeking counseling as if they were married. And each of those couples would have reasons as to why they're not legally, officially getting married. But it is, I think, marriage counseling is kind of becoming more of relationship counseling. So where people feel comfortable coming in even if they're not married. I also think and promote even here at the work that I do is premarital counseling, which is often done more in kind of religious sectors. A church may require it and the pastor may be leading it. But as people are moving away from the church, which is a different conversation entirely, but then they don't have access to those premarital, workshops or counseling through their pastor or religious clergy. And so therapists can help fill that void, because what we also know very clear in research is that couples who engage in premarital therapy get ahead of issues that might be facing them, have a much greater chance of marital satisfaction in the marriage.
Okay, and you talked about marriage and family counseling. What types of situations do you find where it's the family dynamic that you're working with?
Yeah, I would say the number one would be blending families. So there might have been, the couple had been previously married, or at least are bringing children from previous relationships, and they're trying to blend those things. And it's hard enough to blend two individuals together in a relationship of this magnitude. You start to stack in children who don't have a choice, if you will, in this. That's where a lot of that dynamic needs to be flushed out in therapy. And so that's one main reason where I see the family therapy, at least in the work that I kind of focus in on. Others are just, if marriage is hard, parenting is harder, right? So there's just levels of hardness in human beings and how we interact, right? So parenting is like another stress factor in relationships. And so sometimes that family therapy is simply just trying to strengthen a relationship between a father and son, or a mother and daughter, or, it could be two parents and one child. So that type of family therapy comes up. So it's the blending of couples. It is just the fact that being a mom and dad is tough for everyone.
And I'm sure it's best to bring all involved to the couch, so to speak. But even if somebody is hesitant, do you recommend that the other individual come in and seek some assistance?
Yeah, it's definitely not uncommon for one of the members in the relationship to say, we need to go to counseling, and the other, and it's often stereotypically the male that is like, I'm not going, but I'm here to tell you, and whoever's watching, that isn't always the case. I would say more often than not, it usually is that dynamic in heterosexual couples where it's the woman who's kind of saying we need to go and the husband dragging their feet, but not always, I should say. And the way I communicate with clients about that phenomenon is, if you think you need it and your partner doesn't, then you can come in and maybe we can work on how do you develop the language or the ability, the skill to talk about how important this is to them in a way that maybe they might hear you. So I guess it is, I'd never tell anyone who wants to come in for couples counseling, if they can't get their partner to come in, then don't bother. But you're right, the best impact in the work that I do is when two people are sitting here, because we can work on what's between them and not just what's individually going on with one of them.
Yeah. And of course, with counseling, it's not how can a wife change her husband, it's how can the wife change herself to better the relationship too. So
yeah, I would say it's how can each
and of course, vice versa.
Yeah, I think I was recently on a podcast and somebody asked about like love, and we fantasize love and what it is, and it's been hijacked to some degree by media and Hallmark, the people who make the cards, and it truly is. In the work that I've seen and the work that I do, love is compromise. It is being able to say, in this life where I have choice, I am choosing to not get what I want all of the time, so that you can have what you want. And that's what I try, to get to couples to a place where they can actually even have that conversation. Most of the time, when people come into at least this room, they're in camps on one side of the room and on the other, and they just kind of lob grenades back and forth. And my goal is to at least put up a white flag for an hour a week to come out and let's try to broker a peace deal, and let's try to reconnect if we can, and find some place to like regrow that relationship.
Yeah, okay. What are some of the more common situations that you find when there's conflict within a marriage? What causes those conflicts?
Number one, not even close, is communication. It goes back to what we had talked a little bit earlier about, where we just stopped communicating. We talk to each other, but we're not actually communicating. And so I would say the majority of the work that I do in here is helping, couples communicate and walk through like what makes effective communication. Because we think about a conflict of a problem. So couples will come in with this problem, and I tell them that's not your problem, right? Because we could solve that problem. Like, he's gonna fold his socks, right? Like, that's not the problem, right? It is that you don't feel valued, and you don't feel valued because you don't feel heard. And so it's like, I help couples get all the way down to the root of what the actual issue is, so we can rebuild and fill those things out, so that way, whatever conflict they have, they can work through. Because here's the thing, there's no marriage therapist in the world that is going to help couples prevent conflict. That is just a part of human relationships. What we do is help couples navigate that conflict, not only discuss and work through it, but also then repair. So lots of times what happens, so second reason people come in beyond communication is they have conflict that goes unrepaired. So in this negotiation where I'm sacrificing and compromising, I might feel hurt. And if we don't repair that hurt and we just carry it to the next thing, I see couples who unpack weeks, months, years of hurt sitting in this chair because they've never taken the time to repair. And so that breeds resentment, and that is a cavity of marriage when you are resenting because you've never felt repaired after the compromise and hurt that you might have experienced. So communication, repair, and then I would say the third one, just to kind of tie a bow on it, and I see it less, is when there's a betrayal of trust. whether that's through infidelity, physical intimacy, emotional intimacy. Those are real challenges that couples have to face. It goes beyond just learning to communicate. Again, there's a whole healing process that needs to transpire, and that's really hard work for people to get there. So I'd say those three things are generally it. How it manifests, it's not putting socks away, it's not helping me parent the way that I expect that you should, or not spending money in the way we've agreed to. Like, all of those are things I call like the surface, and it's truly bred underneath where they're not communicating effectively.
Okay. Do you have a sense, getting back to your own story, a year seems like a long time, but we all know it goes really fast.
Yeah.
Do you have any sense for how you're going to come out of that year sabbatical as far as your academics and your practical?
Yeah, no, I try not to write chapters in a book that haven't happened yet, right? But I would be remiss not to have thought about, okay, you're right. And a year sounds like a long time, but it is going to go by very fast. And then I will be expected to come back to the classroom, and how will I make that transition? And I think for me, the experiences I'm getting here, like I make notes about what I need to do in my teaching, how I need to update things, what I need to talk about differently with students. So I'm very excited about that. And I'm also thinking that just in the season of life that I am, my kids are a little bit older now, that I might be able to do both, that obviously not to the degree that I am now, but why not be able to say, I can be present, do my academic duties, and do that job very well, but also find space, time to be able to continue this, what I feel is just very important work for our community. So time will tell. It may not shake out that way. I'm just trying to, take this moment for what it is, but this has been a really learning experience, and it's only been a few months. I can only imagine a year from now what I'll be able to take from this. And so I'm just very privileged to be able to do that, have a job that would allow me to be able to do that. And my hope is that it then continues to make an impact on the people I teach who works in these communities. And so just to see that ripple effect.
Sure. Let's just real quickly give the name of your company and how people can get engaged if they are seeking help.
Yeah, so I launched Mankato Marriage Solutions is the name of the clinic. We're right here in Mankato on 44 Good Counsel Drive, and you can find our website, which is the best way to get in touch with me, is reach out through the website, and that is mankatomarriagesolutions.com.
Okay, and you are in a great spot. I worked on Good Counsel Hill for a little over a year, and people will tell you, maybe it's less now, but there was a change in spirit. And when you got on that hill, you were in a kind of a solemn place.
Yeah.
And now just being right down from that, I think you'll benefit from that as well.
Yeah, this is a beautiful part of town, and we're just very fortunate to have found a space that really resembles the beauty of our community, but also the beauty of the work that people are trying to do in this room, because that's what they're doing is work, and it's important work.
If you like what we're doing here and you've got some ideas for additional stories that you would like to delve into, we've got a spot for you here at the Woven Record. Just drop us a note at journalist, that's singular, at wovenrecordmedia.com, and we can talk and maybe bring you on board to help us provide these stories that help us bring people together as a community.
And the link is in the description below.
All right, well, thank you, Thad. That's a great introduction for people to the wovenrecord.com, and a great opportunity for you to like and subscribe to the wovenrecordmedia.com. Coming up now is another reason to do that. We've got Lucas Youngerberg. We met with Lucas back in June out at the Resistance Art Festival at Brian Frink's farm, the Poor Farm, and Lucas is our Artist of the Week, and he's from the Mankato Community Queer Choir. That's a mouthful, but it's also a great opportunity for folks in the LGBTQ community, plus allies, to come together to perform music that you really enjoy. Because you want to do things like this with your community. You want to do it with people you enjoy being with and probably share something in common with. So Lucas and the rest of the folks on the board have continued to organize, to make connections, and they are now meeting monthly for rehearsal singing. They've got 2 co-directors, artistic co-directors on board now. Lyndon Kirch comes from a college background where he really got into the classical music. That's where he found his introduction to music. And then Aster Coyer came in. She said if she could do what she wants to do, it would be jazz, pop, and musical theater. So now those 2 are overseeing the Mankato Community Queer Choir in rehearsals, working toward a January 10th show, bringing in all of those different ideas for how to perform and how to show off who you are and what you really enjoy. All right, we're here now with Lucas Youngerberg. He's here with the Mankato Area Queer Choir, is that correct?
Yep.
It just rolls off the tongue.
Yes, it's a lot of Q's and
Yes.
C's, but yes.
But now you guys just started, so
Yes.
what kind of encouraged you to start this organization?
So my friend Jessica Lanas came to me with the question of, hey, we don't have this in the area yet, and I think it would be really good for us to have something here. And so she came to me and asked, how do we get this started? And I said, well, we already did.
Oh.
So she by asking that question,
Okay.
got the ball rolling, and here we are now, several months later. We've got flyers, we've got QR codes, we've got ways for people to sign up through our Facebook page and all of that. So
Yeah,
we've got to
if
go.
you want to get something started, talk to Lucas. And I think that's kind of what this event today is all about, is finding those people who are really the Spitfires, the ones who want to take an idea and run with it. Have you
Yes.
seen that around?
Yes, oh, definitely, yes. Finding those connections and making connections with people is always so important, and I think this is a great event for that to happen today,
Okay.
so.
Is there anything that you would like to see the Queer Choir be at in a year, after 2 years, or just kind of gradually as the idea takes hold in Mankato?
Yeah, I think hopefully we can get even a couple events in this year even. We're hoping to have our auditions planned for hopefully next month or maybe later in August. But follow our Facebook page and we'll hopefully have updates on when those audition dates are and then future shows and performance dates. So,
Yeah, because I saw
yeah.
Jessica has posted something. Did you
Yes.
guys have kind of a information sharing event, or did you get together and sing?
We have gotten together just for information with kind of community members who are interested so far. So
Okay.
we've done that on Mondays, and we're visiting at the Centenary Methodist Church down in Mankato. They're
Yeah.
helping host us while we get started. So.
Yeah, because that environment and Mankato itself is one that really allows people to take new ideas and build them, grow them.
Yes.
One of the
Yeah.
reasons you're doing it?
Yep, exactly.
All right.
Yeah.
What part do you sing?
Oh, I don't sing too much
Okay.
anymore, but I do help with the event planning and organizing. If I was to sing, it would be a baritone bass kind of range.
Okay.
So, yes.
What does attending an event like this, have you had a lot of good interaction? What does it do for a fledgling organization like yours?
Yeah, so the small get-togethers that we've had so far have really sparked a lot of inspiration in everyone that wants to be a part of it, and just having that sense of community has really been life-changing for
Yeah.
a lot of people.
Have you
so.
found a lot of people who come in and say, I didn't know there was this type of environment or this type of organization in town?
Well, and because we're so new, we didn't have that for a long time. So
Yeah.
it is nice for them to finally have something that they can come to where they don't necessarily like acting on a stage, or they don't like dancing, but they do like singing. And so this is giving people that opportunity to be able to, sing and be loud, have fun. So,
And join your voices together,
Yes.
which is a lot what this event is about.
oh yeah.
Do you want to
definitely.
one more time give your Facebook how people can find you there?
Yeah, so our Facebook is the Mankato Community Queer Choir.
All right.
And then we also have our Instagram at Cato Queer Choir.
Okay, and
So, yeah.
I was going to say you got your queer code
Yes,
on there,
yes.
QR I love that.
Yes, yeah, it's very fun.
All right.
So, yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
Since we had that interview, they have brought on two artistic co-directors, and I think it's really interesting because of the background that they have. Lyndon Kirch is a male. He went to school to study. He was mostly in the classical music.
Oh.
That's where he really found his connection. And then there's Aster Coyer, who she says if she could do whatever she wants, it would be jazz, pop, and musical theater. So those two coming together is going to make a really interesting repertoire of music. They're working, they've also got a goal, they've got a performance scheduled for January 10th, 2026. And you know, if you've got a goal, that helps you focus and stay on task for that. So they are meeting on Monday evenings at Centenary United Methodist Church here in Mankato to do their rehearsing. If you want to check out, they've got a website, a Facebook page. I know they're on Instagram.
Yep.
So just check out Mankato Community Queer Choir on any of those formats, and I'm sure you'll get more information.
Yep, and the links to those are in the description below as well. And it was, you know, even back in June when we met Lucas. Well, you've known Lucas from previous interactions with him, but when I met with Lucas, it you know, just the joy of what they were you know, launching and bringing in with the choir was something that you could see back then, and now hearing about the directors and what they're into it should be interesting.
Because it's like a place like Pride Fest here in Mankato that every September you get together down at Riverfront Park, and you can just feel the joy in the air because people are able to not only be who they really are, but they're doing it in a group setting of just love toward them as well. So it's really what all of us are looking for in our lives, is a chance to take what we love and enjoy and do it with those people we love and enjoy.
Yeah, that community again, that sense of building community wherever you find your community, and strengthening the relationships. So that's what the Woven Record's about, is strengthening our communities, and hopefully this first podcast gives you a glimpse into some of what we're going to be bringing you in future episodes.
So we hope you've enjoyed the first stories that we've done here on the wovenrecordmedia.com, and we are looking for additional ideas, and that's where you come in to play. If you can let us know about a story that you've got, an event that's coming up, or just something you think would make a great little snippet of information here on the Woven Record, just drop us a note at stories@wovenrecordmedia.com.
And the link is in the description below.